Hi, I'm going to be going through the grade 7 pieces for flute from the 2022 syllabus. Excuse me. It's 2024 now, and Associated Board do not have any plans to replace the syllabus, they tell me. So this set of 9 pieces that you get in the set book are likely to remain for quite some time. So I'm just going to go through each piece and talk very briefly about the challenges involved in playing each piece. So the first piece is from Sonata in D by Anna Bon di Venezia. She was born in 1739. So the music is kind of like late Baroque, early classical, really. More sort of Baroque, looking at it now. Lots of ornaments and a pretty little tune. Tune that you need to shape properly and make sure that you know which notes are louder than others, which notes are more important than others. A lot of the notes that are important are actually decorated with trills, of course, because that's usually what happens in Baroque music. There's some neat finger work that you need for this one. I would say the tonguing. Obviously the tonguing needs to be nice and clear and crisp. You need to make sure that the dynamics are there. This piece of music would probably be accompanied on the clavichord or harpsichord, and maybe with a cello as well. It goes on for quite some time. It's got 2 pages, no, 3 pages. Oh gosh. Okay, so it has quite a lot of little arpeggios in it and little pretty little sort of passages. Okay, you have to decide where to breathe, because I wasn't sure. I don't know the piece. In terms of the finger work, there's quite a lot of movement across the middle section. So doing some finger exercises for your D and your middle D and E would be a good idea. If you have the Taffanel and Barber, I think it's called 17 Big Daily Exercises, and there's also daily exercises by Moyes, and also Trevor Y has a technique book with lots of exercises in it for your fingers. That's not my favourite book for finger exercises, actually. I think I prefer the 17 Big Daily Exercises or something like that. Moyes or Taffanel and Barber, I prefer, but you know, you have to decide which to do. You can make up your own as well, just by using the scales that you have. But what you really need to do is to strengthen this here and see if you can make sure that the fingers, you know, cross over. You've got that movement. You don't want that kind of thing with some of your fingers rising higher than the others, because that's a bit inefficient. So if you practice it in the mirror, you can just check, make sure that your fingers are rising to the same height and coming back down again, and that will help you get a neat response. Now the next piece comes from Rossini's Barber of Seville, but it's been arranged by Diabelli. One of the things that you can do, of course, first of all, is listen to the Barber of Seville. It's an opera, it's a comedy, and there's some really nice tunes in it. Rossini's very good. You could also listen to the Thieving Magpie, because I can see here that some of the articulation is very similar. Rossini likes that kind of tia ta tia ta tia ta tia ta da 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 da. You know, he likes those kind of little tunes, and the articulation is really important. So you need to tongue in the right place, and there's a lot of detail in the tonguing in this piece. So you've got staccatos, you've got accents, and you've got slurs in places that you wouldn't normally have them. If you look at bar 18. You wouldn't normally have that. You'd usually have instead of there's a lot of detail in the tonguing. You need to be really careful about that, because when you tongue in different places, it gives a completely different character to the sound. And it won't sound like Rossini if you don't do the right tonguing. So you need to put the tonguing in properly. And you've also got in bar 20, so obviously those are notes that are tongued, but they are joined up, so da da da. You need to make sure that that's correct. The best technical book for articulation to ensure that you have complete control over your tonguing is probably a Trevor Y articulation book. It has some really brilliant exercises in there and some really good advice. It's the best one really of the set of Trevor Y technique books. So I would recommend looking at that to see if you can actually crisp up your tonguing and get control over your tongue. Obviously, you should be just moving the tip of your tongue and not the rest of the tongue, and the tongue needs to be as far forward as possible in the mouth behind the top teeth, so that you get a nice crisp sound. So I would say that that's the main challenge for that piece. The ornaments, they say in bars 31, are optional. It's a good idea to practice that bar, that 31 bar, without the ornaments at first, because otherwise you might trip up on yourself. Yeah. When you're practicing bar 31, it would be a good idea just to practice the semiquavers separately from the mordents at first, because that's going to be a bit tricky to do. And what you need to guard against is some of the mordents sounding better than others. Because the first one's okay, isn't it? And then you go, and then. Now, with that middle one, you might want to go with the second finger on the F sharp instead of the third. In any case, that one might be the trickiest. They all need to be the same, that's what I'm saying, because otherwise, when you put them into the phrase, you know, it'll be obvious that you find one of them difficult, and what you don't want is for something to stick out and make it sound obvious. You don't have to play those anyway, so at first, I think the best thing is to leave them out and add them in later on when you can play the whole piece well. Okay, when you get to bar 49, there is like a little cadenza. It's a piacere, means at your own pleasure, so it means that you can play it freely. You can, you know, start off slowly, I guess. Just play it in a free way. So again, the slurs. They're very definite, so you need to make sure that they are correct. When you come to bar 85, make sure that you don't make it like Teddy Bear's Picnic. It's da 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 da. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you think about the ratios being 3 to 1, da da da. It's not 2 to 1. Da 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 da. It's da 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 da. That's a common fault when people are playing this piece. And that's about it, really. I think this is a very enjoyable piece to play. If you can master the articulation and make it sound crisp and fun. There's a lot of fun in Rossini's music. It has a fair amount of humour to it. So you need to think about that when you're playing. And with both A1 and A2, it's a good idea perhaps to look, I always think it's a good idea to look at period films so that you can get a feeling for the way that the composer saw the world. It will help you interpret the piece. and get into that world so that you can play the music more effectively. So now we come to insect dance. Insect dance is from a really good study book called Romantic Studies for Flute by Köhler, and all the pieces in the book are great, and this is one of them. I would suggest that you get the book. It's great. It has lots of really great tunes in it, really great studies in it. So this is one of them. Now let me think, what do you have to be careful of with this? Well, it's obviously all to do with tonguing, crisp tonguing. This particular version is not in the book that I have, and the version that I have is slightly different. If you have the actual Romantic Studies book, so this is the book that this piece of music is from. This one's slightly more difficult than the one that's in the associated board book, so I would recommend, make sure that you just practice the one that's in the set book. There's also a mistake in it. In bar 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the third note is a G, not an E. But other than that, I would prefer this version of it actually. But yes, this is a French edition. You can get it in other books as well. But I would say, yeah, 25 Etudes Romantiques, they're really great studies, really good studies to practice, and interesting. They're all interesting, they're all different characters, different ideas. With this one, I would say, yeah, spirituoso e ben staccato, so spirited and with good staccato. It's all to do with crisp tonguing. In a way, all the pieces in List A are all about that. It's all about articulation, shaping the phrases and making it sound convincing. And in the associated board, and there are some differences in quite a few areas of the versions. I don't know why. Okay, so Nocturne by Lily Boulanger, which is B1. This is a completely different character, and obviously a later piece of music. Tone. You'll get a good result for this piece if you practice your tone. Beautiful slurred notes and subtle phrasing. It doesn't look like there's anything particularly difficult in this piece. Okay, so some of these intervals, some of these little scalic passages are a little bit tricky. So how would you practice them? Well, looking at bar 22, I think I would probably just speed them up gradually, start off slowly and get faster and faster. You could do the one note at a time strategy where you just play one note and then the next note, like just helps your brain and your fingers think about which note's coming out next. But I think really what you need to do is to get the sound in your head, and it's not always obvious what kind of harmony there is there. So you probably need to listen to this piece over and over again with somebody good playing it, not anybody, you know, a top flautist. Like I keep saying to people, you know, don't just watch anybody, you know, choose somebody really good and have a listen to them, so that you've got the sound in your head, and then you'll know if there is a problem. But I think really those little runs do need extra work. It ends on a PPP on the... You could try tonguing, I don't want, but if you put your lips, your tongue between your lips and then take it away very gently and clearly for that last note. There tends to be a bit of a delay when your tongue moves from behind your top teeth. So if you bring it forward more, you will have more control over it because the air will come out quicker, and you will be able to control the start of the note a little bit more easily. So I would suggest doing that. I know that's very brief. Practice your tone and practice those little runs and you'll be fine, and practice listening to it. Monody for a Lost Faun. So this is quite a famous piece of music. This requires a lot of control over your tone and dynamics. There are some intervals that you need to join up as well, but on the whole, certainly at the start of the piece, what you're trying to do is to join up the notes so that they sound as smooth as possible, and obviously you need to make sure that the timing is correct. It's a largo sostenuto, so that's slowly and but sustained. So like it feels like it's held. Da, 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 da. A good idea is to count in quavers, but try and move on to counting in dotted crotchets eventually, because the feeling of the piece will change according to what you count. If you count da 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 da, before you know it, you might be doing the vibrato in the same speed, and it holds the piece up and doesn't give it much direction. But if you count something in slower beats, you tend to have a feeling of moving forward. Whereas if you count in smaller, you know, da 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 da, instead of da 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 da, you know, you need to first of all learn this piece in 12/8. So you're counting one for a quaver, or you can count one for just count one for a quaver to make sure that they're rhythmically correct. But quite soon after that, you need to move on to counting in dotted crotchets, just simply because otherwise you will destroy the feeling of the music by dividing it up into tiny little bits instead. Try and think ahead and shape the music, thinking about what's coming up, rather than focusing too much on each beat. Eventually, I hope that makes sense, but it will destroy the effect of the piece if you're only you're only counting in small, in quavers. There's an awful lot of dynamic variation in this piece, and you need to think carefully about how you're going to plan it and control all the different variations of the sound. The other thing that you could do is practice tone colours in order to make it sound more effective. And again, Trevor Wise got a section about that in his tone book, where he talks about different colours and how you can create different colours on the flute. That's a whole area in itself that I haven't got time to cover now, but you could look into that, and that would be a good idea to look at so that you can put that into this piece. So the offertoire I'm not going to be talking about because I have a detailed video on the offertoire already. Okay, so list 3 starts with an etude that I don't know, A lot of these pieces I don't know because they are not standard repertoire. Okay. So, to get the feeling of this piece, I think you need to listen to some Spanish and Venezuelan music, and then it will be much easier to play. This is a fun piece to play. It's a bit tricky from the point of view of the rhythm, and that's really what you need to master. It would be a good idea to practice it slowly at first and speed it up gradually. The metronome mark is crazy fast because, of course, it's in 5/8, so 265 is beyond the capabilities of most metronomes, physical ones anyway, and some digital ones as well. Certainly it's beyond mine. Mine goes down to a 208. So yeah, it's quite fast. Lots of finger work involved in it and lots of rhythmical challenges, but it has the same feeling all the way through. So that's why I think that it would be a really good idea to listen to Spanish music and get the feeling of it, because if you get the feeling of it, it'll be so much easier to play. Just make sure that you don't practice it too fast, because it could go wrong after a bit if you're not careful. You need to make it sound festive. At the end, you've got some scalic passages. Again, you could probably practice these with different rhythms. Like that, and just play them through with different rhythms so that your fingers get used to the different shapes that they have to go in quickly, and then when you take the rhythms away, you should find that it's easier to play those passages at the end. I would say this is one of these pieces of music that's worth the effort of learning, but it is actually a fair amount of work to master it. The reason I say that is because at the beginning you've got a lot of F sharps which don't always come out nice and clearly on the flute. You would probably benefit from doing some long notes in the upper register, maybe from Sonority by Marcel Moyes, the exercises for the top register. I think the technical exercises there will really help you get those notes confidently. Right, so we've got C2, which is Tumbling Bay. Again, listening to West Oxford Walks, the original, which is for orchestra. This is a very good arrangement, though. It's a cute little piece. There's lots of work at the top of the instrument with top Bs, moving from top B to G and A over and over again. So quite a lot of tricky little bits, but a really fantastic piece to play and learn. It's not standard repertoire, of course, so if you're wanting to become a flautist, sometimes it's better to focus on the standard repertoire more than the other pieces, because those are the kind of pieces that people want to hear and they are expected. They are known to be very well written and they are well respected, and you can play them in concerts, and they're a good investment for your time to learn those. Paul Taffanel, Allegro Grazioso and Allegretto Scherzando, that's C3. Fairly standard repertoire, really. I probably should know it. It's very expressive, it's got a nice tune to it, well worth learning. Probably a good idea to listen to top flautists play it so that you can get some ideas about how you're going to interpret this. But it is very French, So actually playing the earliest Köhler, I mean he wasn't French Köhler, but they're definitely in the French style. There is a way of playing French music, and there'll be lots of examples of this online. So you have to think about your vibrato in this piece and think about the expression. It's quite romantic. So it would be a good idea perhaps to think about something romantic when you're playing it, perhaps. Baroque music, when you're playing A1 for example, there are lots of subtleties. This is more full-blown sort of romantic music, and you need to plan out how you're going to slow down and speed up so that you don't overdo it obviously with the slowing up, but you need to make it sound romantic and from the heart. And that is basically a quick run through the grade 7 pieces. I must say all the pieces in this book are pretty well structured and composed, but think about whether you're going to be playing them again. You know, if you think that the Etude number 1, you know, the Arriagada is a good choice for you, and you like it, and you want to invest the time in learning it, then have a think about whether you could play it for a concert or in another environment as well, not just for the exam. You've got I mean, it's a good idea to learn all these pieces, of course, but if you're going to become a flautist, then I think you should invest your time in the standard repertoire, ideally anyway. That's my advice. It's up to you. Okay, bye for now.